Today it's my great pleasure to present Katana Graph Solutions, Scalable Graph Search, and Graph Mining. So this is the teamwork of me with my colleague, Bo, Gurbinder Gill, Thomas Cook, and Keshav Pingali. So this is the Knowledge Graph Conference. So we all know graph is becoming the mainstream data model for enterprise applications. And for enterprise, they are facing the challenge for data integrations. And Graph is evolved as the de facto solution for data integration because Graph can provide effective and relatively simple solution by integrating data using connecting nodes by adding edges. Graph is the model, is actually the formal model that can emphasize the connection between data. So the edge between nodes. The relationship, data itself is important, but the relationship between data is getting critical and more important. Sometimes it's even more important than data itself. So Graph is an ideal model that can emphasize the essential of relationship between data. And Graph is also now the backbone of AI algorithm for inferencing and intelligence because in the graph, you can easily do the inference. For instance, A is connected to B, B is connected to C. So A and C potentially in the future can be connected. Also, A and B has common neighbors, and A and B might potentially have the link of the edge in turn. So today's today's graph adapter is tomorrow's market leader. And there are challenges in graph computing. For instance, what is graph? Graph is the nodes A connect to nodes B through the edge C. So C can be directional or unidirectional, and C oftentimes is viewed as the function between A and B. So graph is unstructured, not like the common, SQL database, relational database. Graph cannot be stored in relational database. At least cannot be efficiently stored in relational database. Because graph is also contextual because, for instance, A has a local context and the global context. The local context is the one hop and two hop connection of A with nodes and edges. And the global connection of A is the global property of A in the whole graph. For instance, this A can have high degree centrality or high between centrality. So A can be the bridge between the community A and community B. So community A is a set of nodes, and community B is a set of nodes. A has a high between centrality. To connect these two communities, if you take A out, these two graphs will be disconnected. So A itself has local context and global context. That is actually very important. And furthermore, graph nodes and edges can have their own types. And for instance, you buy a laptop, you as the customer and laptop as a product, these two nodes are two different kinds of nodes. Edges, you buy a laptop or you sell a laptop, and buy and sell are also two different kinds of edges. You cannot treat you and the laptop as a product are the same nodes, or you buy and sell at the same edges, the same in drug discovery. The protein induction, the edges, and drug induction, they're very different edges. And the drug and side effect they are very different nodes. And furthermore, graph also has complex properties. For instance, in the C can be transitive. For instance, it's a friend of, so you can transitive functions, or it can be inverse function, like you buy something, something is bought by you, so the inverse function itself can be inverse functional properties. So C can have a complex properties. Graph itself is heterogeneous. Currently, when many graph algorithm or graph mining algorithm, they actually treat graph as homogeneous graph. That means your nodes and edge has no type. You buy a laptop, you and laptop are same kind of nodes. You buy laptop or you sell laptop, the buy and sell edge are the same edges, which is definitely not sufficient for knowledge graph mining, because knowledge graph itself is heterogeneous. And graph can be really huge. If graph with millions of nodes and millions edges, if you just plot them into dimension and show in your screen, no matter how big your screen will be, it will look like a dark hairball. It's very hard for human to consume. It's too big for human consumptions. So of course, there are solutions for graph computing for this challenge. For instance, graph database. We provide, it's a NoSQL database. There's a lot of graph database vendors. With this graph database, you can store your graph, you can load your graph, and graph search. There are, search queries. For instance, you can write Sparkle query or OpenCipher query to search graph. But graph search query, it's actually based on the past patterns. All the topology of graph, if the graph getting really big, it's very hard for human manually to figure out the past patterns, especially when you have like millions of nodes and edge in your big knowledge graph. It's very difficult to find past patterns. Sometimes past pattern can be given by domain experts. So if you have prior knowledge in certain domain, for instance, in drug discovery, you know the certain drug binding some target and the other target in the same pathway. So those kind of paths can be important or critical for computational biologists, and you can use this path pattern to write Sparkle queries. But if you don't have this domain knowledge, it's very hard for you to figure out path pattern in large scale graph. And graph analytics, it's beyond graph search, actually help you to detect the hidden patterns, especially past patterns, for you to be able to do the downstream tasks like link prediction, nodes classification, or graph clustering. So machine loves graph because graph is ideal model for machine to evolve and think. Our brain is connected neuron, itself is a graph. And the neural network, deep learning neural network itself is a connected neuron. It's a graph. And deep learning enables machine to think, and machine thinking in the graph way. So machine loves graph. For knowledge graph, graph AI, artificial intelligence, especially machine learning, deep learning, has a great success in computer vision. Now, the computer vision, deep learning computer vision, more viewed as matured technology, which already implement in production. So you can see people, maybe many of you drive this car or have the driverless car. So you can see this product already, driverless car or Tesla on the road. Deep learning AI methodology, normally novelty always coming from computer vision, then slowly move to natural language processing, NLP, then move to graph. So tomorrow, deep learning will play a huge role to create a miracle on graph. They can actually, graph AI can be critical for you to mind complex relationship in our ever-growing connected world, because graph AI itself will become the digital brain for our connected world. So in Katana, we have a scalable graph search. We provide lightning fast graph search based on the graph analytics tool, which is LDBC. This is an industry benchmark that enable objective comparison of graph analytics. So we compare not Katana graph with other solutions in a single machine. So most of graph providers actually provide a solution only in single machine, is not in the distributed manner. So if we just all in the single machine Katana graph, you can see exponentially improve the search time, reduce the search time. with query in 3 nodes or query in 5 nodes. If we can distribute, Katana graph also provide distributed solutions, which can distribute to 4 hosts or even further. So Katana 4 hosts is 2.6 times faster than 1 host. Katana's scalable graph search solution can scale to graph with billions of nodes. And graph analytics at Katana Graph, we also provide scalable solution to identify global insights. For instance, PageRank. PageRank is the very important algorithm in graph mining. It has been implemented in many vendors. So here we show the Katana graph solution with others in road traffic in Europe, so which is 173 million nodes and 350 million edges. And you can see Katana is scale really greatly compared to baseline method. And same for the Twitter data, which is a social network. It has 41 million nodes and 1.4 million edges. Katana graph engine can scale up to 256 plus machines. And Katana graph, we also work on the peaceful supercomputing center. You can see that it's on the social network graph. It's a Friendster, 66 million nodes, 1.8 million edges. With the increase of the number of GPUs, you can see that graph, Katana graph perform the task of PageRank and the weakly connected component search. You can see we can scale linearly with the increased number of GPUs. So Katana supports single machine with multiple GPUs as well as distribute GPU clusters. So if you have single machine, we can scale your method with multiple GPUs. If not, we can actually provide the distributed GPU clusters. In general, Katana graph provide multiple language support, so all the background technology in Katana is being implemented in C++, which is computational efficient. And in the front end for the user, we have using Python. So any Python editors like Jupyter Notebooks, you can easily access our product. And we also provide seamless integration to OpenCipher. So if you are familiar with OpenCipher, you can write your OpenCipher query in our platform easily. We can handle massive data set. We also can integrate the third-party tools. For instance, you have some in-house analytics tools on the graph. We can, our platform or our infrastructure can easily integrate in with your third-party tools. Or if you have some scientific analytics tools, it also can be easily integrated. And Katana solution is extremely scalable, especially on complex queries. For instance, complex OpenCipher query. We can scale much faster with superior performance. Our scale-out architecture can help you to reduce your costs by provide efficient executions. So for the graph AI, you know, there's a lot of graph embedding is a method. Those are the important graph artificial intelligence or graph deep learning method. Those embedding methods provide the features that can, in the end, generate the embedding, which is the vector for nodes. With this embedding, you can easily do the link prediction or class nodes classification. So we're already familiar with node-to-vect, and next stage is graph sage. And those two only address homogeneous graph. Slowly, people start to address heterogeneity of graph in the metapath. So you have metapath to vect. You also have edge to vect address heterogeneity of graph by consider the semantics of the edges. All these embedding algorithms have been implemented in Katana platform. We have a super scalable graph mining platform called Pangolin. So Pangolin is built on Galois system, provide multiple GPU, CPUs, and GPU clusters. It has API that based on the execution engine, helper routines, and embedding list data structure. Use Pangolin API, you can do very common or complex graph search, such as triangle counting, click finding, motif counting. For instance, in figure 1, it shows the 3 motif countings, and frequent subgraph mining. So in figure 3, you can see this is the example of graph pattern mining. Pangolin is efficient and flexible in memory framework for graph mining, targeting shared memory, CPUs, and GPUs. It is a cutting-edge technology for novel optimizations to reduce memory consumption and mitigate the overheads of dynamic memory allocation. It outperforms state-of-the-art graph mining solutions with a scale up to 1 billion nodes. And this is the paper we published from Katana Graph and published in 2020 VLDB conference. As we mentioned, Medbus is very important because when you write OpenCipher queries or even Sparkle queries, your query actually is the set of metapaths. So you have to detect this metapath first. Especially for large-scale knowledge graph, it is very difficult to identify metapaths. Transformer is a technology very successful in NLP. Everybody familiar with BERT? So BERT is the transformer fine-tuned by Google. It's outperformed all this baseline NLP method. Transformer has slowly come to graph mining, especially recently, their efforts to use graph transformer for heterogeneous graph. So this method can effectively identify metapath patterns for you. For instance, this is the method, scalable method, actually applied in a really large-scale knowledge graph called Microsoft Academia Graph, which contains 170 million articles. With this graph transformer, they can find path patterns. For instance, they find the path pattern between paper, venue paper, or paper field paper, institute, author, and paper. And you can also see the edges has a semantics. And even they can identify a kind of like a metapath as a subgraph. For instance, you can see the venue connect to paper, and paper is written by author. Author is coming from this institute, and the paper is written by multiple authors. So those kind of metapath patterns is very important for us to do OpenCipher query, Sparkle query, and even help us to do deep learning for graph. Additionally, if you look at contrastive learning, it's a very important algorithm. Now it's a major focus in top computer science conference. Contrastive learning outperforms other deep learning because contrastive learning can refine the feature space by making, so here they call the anchor, by making the anchor with the positive sampling more close, has a more similar embedding, and with negative sampling has very different embeddings. So basically, it's important to enable contrastive learning. You need to have different data augmentation to create positive sampling and negative sampling. Contrastive learning is easier to do in computer vision because you can blur the image, cropped image, upside down image, but it's very hard to do on graph. So here we provide 2 solutions for data augmentation for contrastive learning on graph about node dropping and edge perturbation. And this paper is published in NURBS by our group at NURBS 2020. So it can generate a better embedding for nodes, and later on improve the performance on link prediction and node classification. In summary, Katana has the cutting-edge scalable graph solution to search knowledge graphs, to mine graph patterns in knowledge graphs, to infer knowledge using scalable graph deep learning method. Katana is dedicated to provide scalable and novel graph analytics solution for different vertical markets. We are partnered with a pharmaceutical company to do drug discovery, with financial partners into fraud detection. And also we are partnered with companies in silicon industry to do chip design. So recently in April, Katana Graph partnered with Intel to develop the third generation of Intel scalable processors. In summary, we are building technology to drive the next generation of graph computing. Thank you for your time, and I'm now open for questions.